Hey everybody, this is your Mind Translated podcast. This is your host, Jack, so let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Your Mind Translated. I have been absent for a while, been pretty much busy with work and some little side traveling that I decided to do to unplug a little bit from the daily grind. I want to quickly recap or pick up where I left off in my last episode concerning sounds and how they can trick our hearing and understanding of what we are paying attention to. Someone very, very close to me made a very good point while listening to that episode. She said to me that sounds and language can even have more varied meaning depending also on the culture and language, which is paying attention to that specific sound. If you listen to the last episode, I played this clip from a chant made from a soccer stadium in the UK in which the whole crowd is chanting, "That is embarrassing." And different people listen to or hear different things depending on context or depending on whatever is going on in their brains or minds at the time. So some people listen or hear Bart some bouncing, some people hear "that is embarrassing." But the point here is that this very close person to me, she said that also people who don't speak English or people whose English is not their first language might totally hear a different thing, or they might hear something in their native language. And I didn't consider that before, and it makes a lot of sense. People who are not fluent in English or people who come from a different background or language might even hear a totally different phrase or sound, and even a sound that makes sense in their own language because that's what they're used to their own language. So that is a very interesting and good point that Melika pointed out. So I want to thank her for her invaluable input. On another note, I want to share with you a very profound experience that I had recently. It was an encounter that left me with much more than I initially expected. This was a meeting with a man whose wisdom and clarity opened my mind in ways I hadn't anticipated. So let me tell you about this right now. It was one of those ordinary days in which I was doing some stuff on my laptop. I was at a hostel. And I suddenly met some of the travelers. He was sleeping when I woke up first. And then while I was doing some work, he just came close to me to initiate some chit-chat. At first glance, he seemed just like anyone else, just a regular dude traveling or whatever. But as I would soon learn, he was far from ordinary. Let's call him the wise man for now. This guy, he had calm and collected demeanor, the kind of presence that quietly demands your attention without ever asking for it. We started with a casual chat, exchanging pleasantries about the weather, the traffic, and other mundane topics, the typical small talk. But something about the way he listened made me want to keep talking. Soon our conversation naturally flowed into deeper topics. Before I knew it, we were discussing the state of the world. There was something captivating about his perspective. It wasn't just the content of what he said, but the way he said it. Every word was deliberate, yet not forced. It was as if he'd spent years meditating on the subjects we discussed, and now here I was on the receiving end of all his hard-earned insights. We touched on a range of issues, the constant flux of the world, the political unrest we witness across the globe, the rise of technology, and how it both connects and isolates us at the same time. He talked about how in this age of information there is a paradox. We are more informed than ever, but less capable of truly understanding. It's as if we've replaced wisdom with data, he said. We are floated with facts, but parched for meaning. That phrase really stuck with me. Flooded with facts, but parched for meaning. I think he was getting at something that many of us feel, though we might not have put it into words. We have all these facts, news, headlines, social media updates, but how often do we take a step back and reflect on what it all means? And it wasn't just his words, it was his ability to frame the larger picture, to see things from an elevated perspective, yet remain grounded. He wasn't offering solutions per se, but he was offering clarity. He spoke about how modern life, with all its noises and chaos, is constantly pulling us away from moments of stillness, from quiet reflection. True understanding, he said, comes in the spaces between the noise. And we've forgotten how to be comfortable in those spaces. I am probably butchering everything he said because, as I previously mentioned, he was so articulate and so wise and so carefully but academically prepared, and at the same time so naturally well-spoken that I can't convey exactly word by word or even sentence by sentence of what I remembered, because it was just an overwhelming flow of words, of beautiful words, of beautiful rational meaning that he was getting at, speaking about. And I don't think I can even completely 100% articulate or express or say exactly what he said, but kaboom, motherfucker, kaboom. That guy it's I don't understand how his brain works, really. I remember sitting there nodding along as if hearing things I had known deep down but never fully articulated. We talked about how society has become so reactive, always jumping from one outrage to the next. And yet, in all this reaction, we lose the ability to see the bigger picture, to engage in meaningful dialogue that could lead to true change, basically. I think we both shared this idea that the challenge today is not just to be informed, but to remain wise, to filter through the noise, and to hold on to the core truths that have always guided us. Compassion, understanding, and the pursuit of real knowledge. These are the things that really anchor us. That one conversation led to many more over the course of several days. We dove into the purpose of life, the role of community, and of course the current state of humanity. He wasn't cynical at all, even when we discussed some of the darker aspects of the world we live in today. The division, the polarization. Instead, he believed in the power of individuals to make small, meaningful changes. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, he said, but change doesn't always start with sweeping actions. Sometimes it begins with one person being willing to listen, to understand, and to act with kindness. I left those conversations with that guy with a sense of both humility and hope. Humility because I realized how much I still had to learn, and hope because I could see that even in the most confusing times, there are people out there, wise souls, who are quietly making sense of the world, or trying to at least, and who are willing to share that understanding with others. And something else that I think happened is that what struck me most was how at no point did this man claim to have all the answers. He spoke with a deep awareness of the complexity of life, acknowledging that sometimes there are no clear answers. Yet there was comfort in his uncertainty, because within it he found a kind of wisdom. He said, "It's okay to not have all the answers as long as you're willing to keep asking the questions that matter." man, how fucking cool is that? It's okay to not have all the answers as long as you're willing to keep asking the questions that matter. As I reflect on that encounter today, I'm reminded of how important it is to seek out those deep conversations in our own lives. We spend a lot of time engaging in surface level interactions that we often forget how fulfilling and transformative it can be to really talk and, more importantly, to really listen. So my challenge for you today is this. Find someone to have one of those conversations with. It doesn't have to be a wise man or someone who seems like they have it all figured out. Sometimes the people around us have wisdom we've overlooked. Ask the deeper questions and listen. You never know what you might learn and how it could change the way you see the world. And now I think it's time to reveal this wise man's name, Avi. Avi, my friend, if you're listening to this, you are a national treasure. And I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart because I know this won't get to your head. Avi knows about psychology, psychiatry, psychoanalysis, Carl Jung, Freud. He knows about everything that there is to know about being a human being. And interesting enough, we had so many awesome conversations in which, I think I had a great time in these conversations. I don't know about Avi, but I remember at one point telling him, man, I regret not having recorded this chat because there's so much here to unpack. And I'm sure there might be at least one person out there who would love to listen to this. But then we both kind of agreed that maybe the conversation was not going to be too organic or natural if we recorded it, because we were going to be aware that we were being recorded. So that's why it didn't happen. But I'm hoping that in the near future we can make an episode and I can invite Avi to have a little chat about anything, because anything that we talked about was awesome. And I want you all guys and girls out there to know Avi as well. So Avi, you're awesome, man. Truly. And again, Avi, if you're listening to this, I apologize if I misremember anything that you said or might have said or didn't say. It's just that you were a tsunami of wisdom and rationality and just you were such a Mount Everest of information that I think my brain was just trying to pack everything into a little 50-minute episode right now. So the point is that we should all strive to have meaningful conversations like the one that I had with you. And although sometimes I believe that wisdom also lies in the quiet spaces. And I think a good conversationalist or a good friend or somebody who's very good at discerning what life is, or at least asking these questions, these kind of questions, is in these spaces where we can find really good, helpful wisdom. So with that being said, thank you all for letting me be in your ears for this short period of time. You can see the links to my Patreon and the website Buy Me a Coffee down below, where you can donate and support the podcast, which is, as you know, greatly appreciated. Tune in for the next one. Much love, everybody. Khodafis.